the energy is useless. So if you have insulin resistance, then a couple of things happen. One is that insulin is a signal to tell your body, don't use fat for energy. So as you have insulin resistance, you're making more insulin. And that high level of insulin is then telling all your fat cells, don't use fat for energy, don't take out any fat, store more, and telling your fat cells to make the sugar into fat. So then you end up storing a bunch of fat because of the insulin. So a lot of people don't know this, but in order to store fat, you need insulin. You have to have it.
Actually, first, it would appear there might be a new painting on Joe's wall that I maybe have never seen before.
Which one?
Uh, Behind your, what is that? Like your or your massage table.
The buffalo?
I don't think I've ever seen that. Have
No,
I?
he's been there for a year and a half, I think.
I don't
Yeah, I've
think I've
seen
seen.
them.
Yeah,
Boy, how many webinars? Oh boy. Well,
I don't
anyway,
think.
I couldn't tell what it was. So anyway, hello. You know what? We're going to start this webinar off really weird. Joe, what is that massage table thing back there?
That is the Saragem 4000. Actually, I don't know the model number, but it is a Saragem, and it's a massage table. You lay on it for like a 40-minute program. It goes up and down. It's like a roller table on your spine, and it just feels amazing. It just kind of resets your body, and it's like going to the chiropractor in your home.
Nice. So I've just been on this technology health stuff kind of kick. And so, guys, those of you who are hopping on the webinar right now, let me know if you're using any of these things. But one of the latest things that I've been really interested in is grounding sheets. And I think maybe we've talked about this before, Dr. Saunders. But do any of you have grounding sheets? Because I think that's going to be my next purchase. I don't know how expensive they are, so I'm saying that without knowing anything. But do any of you use those? Just would be curious. We talk a little bit about grounding on some of our webinars. Some of you are really into that. And by grounding, that means maybe walking outside on the dirt to get the, I mean, okay, what's the scientific thing that's happening? Is there a scientific thing happening? Maybe not. I don't know.
Well, there may be. You actually create negative ions, so you become ionized over time. And if you're insulated all the time, then you develop these negative ions. No, I think it's positive ions, and you need some negative ions. And so you need to like touch the dirt. You have to dig in the dirt. And it's really interesting, like the mats, the grounding mats and the sheets. They have a wire that goes to the ground socket in your socket, and you plug it in. And that is a wire that's directly connected to a rod, a copper rod that goes, 4 feet into the ground. So it's literally grounded. That's what it is.
Interesting. I think May is Mental Health Awareness Month also. And so I was just going to bring this up. When I, sort of related, when I had knee surgery, I was on pain meds for about almost 2 weeks, I think. And I got into a really weird place mentally. I did not feel right. I was off. It wasn't good. In fact, if you ask my husband, he'll tell you it was horrible because I was not very kind. And I couldn't get out of it. I could tell that I was in it and I couldn't get out of it. One of the things that I did was walk outside. Well, first of all, I got off the pain meds, but walking outside, it was still like maybe just above freezing, and I was still walking on the ground barefoot, trying to do something to help. And honestly, I think that made a really big difference for me. And so I have read too that that helps with inflammation in your body. Grounding is really, really important for that. So that's what I've seen research has shown, I guess, about the mats and the sheets and all of that. And I should be looking at the chat to see if any of you guys have said anything.
It also helps, like if you're traveling time zones, the best thing you can do right after you get off the plane is go ground yourself in the new place. And yeah, on the beach or on the ground or whatever, barefoot. And it'll help you connect and yeah, be more compatible with that time zone. So you sleep better.
Awesome. Okay, well, let us know if any of you are using any of that. I said someone had said, Annie said, I plant trees, which is great. Getting your hands in the dirt. I mean, that's good stuff. Awesome. Okay, anything else I'm missing? Hi, Diane. We're gonna go ahead and get started. We're excited that you guys are here. Welcome to the Barton webinar and the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. You never know how we're going to start these webinars, guys. Just whatever is on our minds seems to be how we start. Started with a buffalo, went to a massage table, and then grounding mats and sheets. So that's how it goes. But if you're here, you're probably interested in things that can help your health journey. And so I think you're probably okay with us talking about these random health things. So I just want to make quick mention here that Dr. Saunders is not your doctor. And so the things that we talk about today would be best discussed with your healthcare provider before you implement any of them. And I say that because I have to say that. So there you go. All right, Dr. Saunders, let's talk about type 2 today. And raise your hand, those of you who were on the webinar last week, because Dr. Saunders made this really good analogy, and I'm going to have him do it again because I love the way he teaches. He can make hard things make sense. Like type 2 diabetes in my mind used to be so confusing, but he's made it make sense. And he's a doctor, and that just seems crazy, right? So that's why we love him. He can do that. And raise your hand if you were here last week. I want to know if we're getting some of the same people on here, but we're going to talk about this. So talk to us about this currency thing and what's happening in the body when we have type 2.
Okay, so this is actually really interesting how the energy is. So in the world, we have to take things that have energy like natural gas. Natural gas, you can burn it, right? There's energy in it. It'll burn, and we burn it, and then we make hot water out of it and use the hot water, the steam from the hot water, to turn turbines to make electricity. So what we're doing is we're exchanging one form of energy for another. In the body, we do the same thing. It's exactly the same. Your body cannot use, well, the systems, your cells cannot use sugar for energy. They cannot use fat for energy. That's not what they do. Your body needs a different kind of energy called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This ATP is the currency of the body. That's what your body uses to move all of its machinery. It's kind of like having electricity. If you have your machinery runs on electricity and somebody brings in some gasoline, you go, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. You're going to have to put the gasoline into a gas generator, generate electricity, and then we can run our equipment. That kind of thing is the way the body works too. Your body, you take in the sugar, the carbohydrates, you take in fat, you take in protein, and it can just sit there forever and do nothing because your body can't use it until it gets converted. So it's kind of like if you're in the United States and you're going to a store and you want to buy I don't know, food. Okay, so you go into a restaurant or something, and so you go to the restaurant, they serve you and everything, and then you pull out your wallet and all you have is Canadian dollars. And you ask them, can I pay in Canadian dollars? And they go, no, we only take American dollars or United States dollars. And they go, okay. So they need to go and exchange those Canadian dollars for American or US dollars. And then they can use them in our economy. So different countries have different economies and they use different things, and that exchange has to work. So in diabetes, you eat a whole lot of sugar, but remember, your body can't use sugar for energy. It has to be converted into ATP. So for that exchange to take place, you need something called insulin. Insulin gets the glucose into the cell so that it can be then converted into ATP, so then the cell can have energy. That conversion process is done by something called mitochondria. Mitochondria, we call them the powerhouses of the body, and in a sense, yes, they're powerhouses. That's the energy exchange system of the cells. So something like a heart cell is going to have thousands of mitochondria in each cell, whereas other cells like connective tissue cells might only have one mitochondrion in that cell. Why? Well, because it's not really active. It's not using a lot of energy, whereas the heart muscle has to go pump, pump, pump every second and never stop, never gets a rest. It's just constantly working. Whereas the connective tissue stuff, well, it's got to make proteins, but here and there, not really right now, maybe later. And so it can have ATP around from just one mitochondrion. So that exchange rate is essentially the same. You get about 32 ATP for every gram of carbohydrate. When I get, I'm sorry, you get 32 ATP for every gram of carbohydrate. Yeah. And then for fat, for every gram of fat, you get more. Darn. Every molecule of fat, you get 9, and every molecule of protein, of sugar or protein, you get 4. So it's 4 for sugar or protein. It's 9 for fat. So that's per molecule. So anyway, so there's an exchange rate depending. So it's kind of like if you were to come from Mexico, the exchange rate's going to be different for the peso than it is for the Canadian dollar, for example. And that's kind of the way the system works. They have to be exchanged for ATP because otherwise the energy is useless. So if you have insulin resistance, then a couple of things happen. One is that insulin is a signal to tell your body, don't use fat for energy. So as you have insulin resistance, you're making more insulin. And that high level of insulin is then telling all your fat cells, don't use fat for energy, don't take out any fat, store more, and telling your fat cells to make the sugar into fat. So then you end up storing a bunch of fat because of the insulin. So a lot of people don't know this, but in order to store fat, you need insulin. You have to have it. And you cannot get fat if you don't have insulin. So we think that, oh, it's the thyroid. And no, it's not the thyroid. The thyroid does not make you fat. Or it's the cortisol, people with stress, right? They get fat easily, right? Why? Well, only because that cortisol makes you insulin resistant. It's the insulin. It's always the insulin. If when someone does not make insulin, any person that does not make insulin has type 1 diabetes. And if they do not take insulin and their body is devoid of insulin, they will get thinner and thinner and thinner and waste away and die no matter how much they eat. They cannot gain weight. They're just gonna, because they can't get sugar into the cells, they're gonna start burning fat and they're gonna be using fat. It's called ketosis. And then they're going to die before they waste away, usually, because with diabetic ketoacidosis, they're going to become acidosis. So the energy has to be made into ATP. That exchange has to happen from fat, and you need insulin sensitivity to do that. And so when you have insulin resistance, you actually make less ATP. You have less energy. So it doesn't, people think it doesn't make sense. Well, I have diabetes. I got a lot of extra fat on my body. My blood sugar is really high. I should have a ton of energy. But they forget that is useless. The fat can't be used for energy. The sugar can't be used for energy. It has to be converted to the currency of the body, ATP. And the conversion is the problem. And that's where insulin resistance is the problem. So why do people get neuropathy, kidney failure, blindness, and pain and numbness and pain, and then problems with their brain, dementia, memory problems, before they even get diabetes? It's because of insulin resistance. It's because they're not converting the energy because they're resistant to it and they can't get the sugar into the cells to convert it to ATP. And insulin blocks you from using fat. So you've got a double whammy here. And it's messing with your energy systems. So then people who have type 2 and they're saying, gosh, why am I so fatigued all the time? I mean, just like fatigue. This is so hard. It's like I can't get going. It must be a thyroid problem. There goes. Everybody goes, oh, it's a thyroid problem. And the number one prescribed drug in the world is thyroid. So it's huge, right? The doctors are just giving out thyroid. Everybody that comes in with fatigue, oh, it must be your thyroid. And that's not the problem. And so people are taking thyroid, they're taking more thyroid, and it's not doing the job, because what needs to happen is to become insulin sensitive so that you can get the glucose into the cells and get them into the mitochondria and make that exchange and make extra ATP and allow your body to use fat for energy to make ATP to make that conversion. So that's why that exchange rate is such a cool analogy, because you could be a millionaire with Canadian dollars and not be able to get anything in the United States, right? It's like, it's not going to work. Yeah, it's just like having a ton of fat on your body, but if it's not converting to ATP, it's not going to work. And that's the point, is if it doesn't work, then you get the neuropathy and the kidney disease and the blindness and fatigue. All those issues happen just because you have a bunch of you're wealthy, but you can't convert that to what the body can use for energy.
Very good. Here's a question from Frank. He says, good day, Dr. Saunders. What test do I use to request from a family physician to determine whether a person is insulin deficient or insulin resistant?
Okay, 4 tests. Do glucose, which is normally done, hemoglobin A1C, a C-peptide, and a insulin level. So the insulin level is an immediate, this is how much I have right now, and that kind of tells you with your glucose, if your glucose is high and your insulin is high, then you know you have a lot of insulin resistance. If your glucose is high, your insulin is low, your pancreas might not be functioning well. The other 2 tests, the hemoglobin A1C and the C-peptide, give you more of a long-term idea. So the hemoglobin A1C is an average blood sugar over 5 or 3 months or so, whereas the C-peptide is how much your pancreas is putting out, averaging over like a few hours. So that gives you an idea whether you have insulin resistance or lack of insulin, too much insulin, or good functioning insulin. That's all.
All right, let's talk about our goal numbers. So many of you are using the Diabetes Solution Kit. If you're not familiar with that, that's primarily what we talk about on these webinars. It's the book that our team has put together with Dr. Saunders to help you reverse your type 2. And you can find that at bartonwebinar.com. I'll show you that here in a little bit. But in phase 1 of that program, our goal is really to get to what numbers for our blood sugar?
We use blood sugar as kind of just a surrogate measurement to see basically where you are. The blood sugar is not so much the issue. Really, we care more about insulin resistance. But since blood sugar is easy to do and we can follow it along, you want it to be between 70 and 90. So anytime you're fasting, your blood sugar should be between 70 and 90. Now, you know about the morning effect, dawn effect. As in the morning when you wake up, as you're waking up, you're making more cortisol, and the cortisol makes you more insulin resistant, and that makes your blood sugar go up. So your glucose is going up, and you go, what the heck? I haven't eaten anything yet. Why is it going up? Well, that's just the insulin effect. That's the insulin resistance effect from the cortisol that you're making every morning. But even then, if you're non-diabetic, if you don't have insulin resistance, then you won't see that because it's only going to go up to 90. It's not going to go up to 120 or 150 or more. It's gonna go up. It still goes up, but it'll only go up to 90, and then it'll level off from there.
All right, let's go into some more questions here. Rianne says, I just wanted to give you an update. I've been doing the 72 to 102 hour fast once a month since November, and I'm finally averaging 130 blood sugar for the week. Still not perfect, but I'm fixing my blood sugar without the meds. Each time there is an improvement, and I will continue until my blood sugar is normal. I'm almost there.
Wow, good work. Good work. Yeah, I just had somebody today. I recommended she start fasting. I gave her the options, and she said fasting is probably going to work the best for her. And she said, "Does it work?" And I'm like, "It does. It does."
It's very good. I'm going to share that with our team, Rianne, because they love to hear how it's going for everyone, what you're finding success with, and that. So nice work. Rayanne also said, yes, I have a grounding mat under my desk and my feet are on it all day, 5 days a week.
Wow, good.
Anonymous said that they have frequent urination day and night, and they have type 2 diabetes. A pretty common symptom with type 2 diabetes, Dr. Saunders?
It's pretty common with type 1. With type 2, if the blood sugar gets up over 300, then yeah, that happens too. Day and night, yeah, that's a problem. That usually means you have pretty high blood sugar.
Okay. Let me see here. Tanya says, is it possible to stress your system in a negative way? My resting sugar is 114 to 124 consistently at 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. So I tried to do a 3-day fast and my sugar went up 165 to 170.
Okay. So the answer is it possible to stress your system in a negative way? Well, yeah, absolutely there is. So the question is, why does it go up? And it's the same thing as the dawn effect. When you're not eating, you're going to release adrenaline, you're going to release cortisol, you're going to have more insulin resistance, and the blood sugar is going to go up. And you know what? That's okay. What you're doing is you're making glucagon, and glucagon is telling your liver to make sugar. So you're using up all the glycogen that you've been storing for years. And so, yeah, don't give up just because your blood sugar went up. Remember, the blood glucose is kind of our surrogate measurement. It's not a good measurement of what's going on. It just gives us an idea of what's going on. And so it's okay when you're fasting if the blood sugar goes up.
All right. Worth says, checked fasting glucose level on empty stomach. Blood sugar was 95 and 103 today. Am I insulin resistant?
Probably not. It's hard to say. If you don't have an insulin measurement, it's hard to say. Some people, I've had people that have had normal blood glucose, like they're just as normal as can be, like always between 70 and 90. And then I check their insulin, and the insulin is like 20 or 30. And it should be around 5. So you can't tell by the blood sugar for sure whether you're insulin resistant or not. And that's why those other tests, the C-peptide and the insulin tests, are important. whenever you check the glucose and the hemoglobin A1C.
Right. We have lots of questions about fasting, so I'm going to get into those here in just a second. But Anonymous says, what is the cause of acid reflux? Sometimes it occurs when I'm hungry or approximately 2 hours after I eat. What is the best therapeutic resolution to this problem?
Okay, acid reflux, that's another issue entirely, but it could be related, especially if you have a lot of insulin, insulin resistance from stress. So the stress hormones, such as cortisol, relax sphincters and allow for acid reflux. So sometimes it's not about what you eat. Sometimes it's just a stress thing, and if you're releasing cortisol, then you could have that sphincter kind of relaxed and allows acid to get up into your esophagus and cause that burning problem that you get. It's not an easy solution. So how do you deal with that then? One of the things that I find helps people the most is to stop eating by 6 o'clock. So the 6:10 reset. And eat something light at night, something like just vegetables or a salad or something like that at night, because the stomach empties according to calories, and our digestive system shuts down at night. Our cortisol level goes down, so the digestive system shuts down, the liver shuts down, and so the acid reflux is when there's still stuff in the stomach after everything is kind of shut off. And it makes acid, and it's often low acid. Anyway, so if you make sure your stomach is empty in the evening, that'll often stop that entirely. I find that most often that would be the best way to deal with it.
This is the goal of these webinars, and our Facebook group, Barton Webinar on Facebook, is just to get feedback from other people. I love that you guys are all sharing some of your own stories and your own thoughts. Eugene said the best thing to do for acid reflux is aloe vera gel, or if it gets worse, baking soda. And Charles says sometimes a sulfite allergy manifests as acid reflux, present in wines and beer and often sprayed on lettuce at restaurants. And then Robin says, I have a small hiatal hernia. My doctor says this is causing my acid reflux. Is that a symptom?
Potentially, yes. Hiatal hernias are often associated with that. So a hiatal hernia is where the esophagus comes down through the diaphragm. There's a hole in the diaphragm that allows the esophagus to go through into the stomach down below. And if the stomach enlarges, it pushes up around through that hole that in the diaphragm. So you actually have stomach up where the lung normally is, and that's from having your stomach too large. So the way to fix that is fasting. Fasting is a great way to fix that. Because when you're not eating, your stomach actually shrinks down. It should be about the size of your fist. But a lot of people who eat and then they have another meal before they even emptied out the first meal, and then they have another meal, so they're eating meals on top of meals. Their stomach can get to be 2 liters, that's a half a gallon. And normally it's the size of your fist, and so that's a big issue. And then that pushes up through the diaphragm into the chest cavity. And some people get acid reflux when that happens.
Okay, Javier says, per your advice, I talked with my doctor and showed him the Cinechroma bottle. He suggested I just take the cinnamon with chromium instead. He said Cinechroma had too many things that seemed unnecessary. I was so disappointed. Does my doctor not know enough, or is this program just more than I need? I'm pre-diabetic. Well, first of all, let's talk about what's in Cinechroma. I'm just gonna ask, did he say you don't need vitamin D or selenium or vanadium?
Yeah. The things we included in Synachroma are common deficiencies that affect blood sugar. So it doesn't have everything in it, and it's not one of those like you see these multivitamins. And we looked at a bunch of different things, a bunch of different supplements for diabetes before we came up with Synachroma. We were looking for a good one. Are there any good ones out there? And most of them were like they have like a list of herbs, you know, they got bitter melon and Gymnema sylvestre and all these other herbs and stuff in there. And then they have tiny amounts of a whole bunch of vitamins, B vitamins and alpha lipoic acid, all this stuff in it. Um, and I said, no, we need to make something simple, something easy, something that is going to be just for people specifically that have type 2 and that might be deficient in these. So these are common deficiencies. It doesn't have a lot of stuff in it. It's really actually very simple. It has cinnamon, and your doctor acknowledged that the cinnamon can be useful. The chromium is something that is necessary for utilization of glucose in the body. And then it has selenium. Selenium is a very common deficiency, and people that don't have enough selenium don't make something called glutathione. And then vitamin D is really important for using glucose, and it's not unnecessary. And we didn't put a tiny little bit in there. We put a real 1 day dose of vitamin D3, so it's 5,000 units, and that's the real amount that people need. Between 5,000 and 10,000 is an optimum, gives you an optimum level of vitamin D. But then we had to put vitamin K. Well, we had to. We put vitamin K because vitamin D, besides making you more sensitive to your insulin receptors, it also causes you to absorb more calcium. And if you're just absorbing calcium and you don't have vitamin K, then you deposit it in your soft tissues like your arteries. And so we didn't want that to happen. So the vitamin K is added in there so you can take the calcium that's being absorbed and bring it in and put it into your bones. So you know, a lot of doctors will look at that and say, "Oh, vitamin D, vitamin K, that's for osteoporosis. You don't need that." But no, that's not what it's for. It's actually for insulin sensitivity. It will make you more insulin sensitive. That's what vitamin D does. And then the vitamin K will prevent the vitamin D from doing any damage to your arteries by depositing calcium in them. And that has been shown. That's a real thing, by the way. They did a study on women taking calcium, and the higher levels of calcium just ended up depositing in their arteries. So so the vitamin K is an important thing. So we added that in. The other one was selenium. We talked about that. Oh, vanadium. And that's it. And vanadium also works with chromium. So they actually come together, and they should come together to help the blood sugar. So everything in there except for the vitamin K is really for blood sugar, and the vitamin K is needed for the vitamin D. They have to pair together. So it just makes so much sense to me to do it this way rather than all of the other supplements we looked at that just have a million ingredients in them. It's not a million. It's only, well, that's it.
You know, and I think that's one of the supplements too that everyone on our team takes, and not because most of them are not even pre-diabetic. I don't even know if we have anybody that's pre-diabetic right now on our team, but they all take it because most people are deficient in most of those things anyway. My whole family takes Synachroma, and I wanted to just see what else you had said here. Does my doctor not know about this program? Or
I have a quick note to say. So I had my blood drawn a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and got the results yesterday. And it shows like your cellular absorption levels basically, and it showed all these different levels. And basically my vitamin D was a little bit low. My selenium and vanadium were a little bit low. And I'm like, dang, I haven't been taking Synachroma for much, like maybe twice a week I'll take one. But I think like I got to a point where I'm like, I've been taking this, a long time. I'm probably fine. I don't have to take it as much. But then I'm like seeing those results. I'm like, This really should be more like a daily vitamin type of a thing that we're thinking about here. So yeah, proof was in my results. Like I was still low in those things, and it's because I haven't been taking Synachroma. So I took 6 when I heard that. Like, oh, taking 6, boom.
And Dr. Saunders, for example, selenium, where can you find that in food?
Well, pretty much Brazil nuts.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
that's
they're not
it.
things that are easy to come by. And how many Brazil nuts do you need to eat, to get the
Well,
right?
actually, not very many. You get up to 50 milligrams of selenium in a Brazil nut. So, if you eat a few of them, 4 of them, then that would be a decent dose. Um, and any foods that are grown in selenium-rich soil. So there's nothing magical about Brazil nuts pulling selenium out of the soil. It's just that they have to be grown in a tropical environment, and the place where they're grown has high selenium in the soil. That's really the only reason. There's nothing magical about Brazil nuts. It's just where they're grown. Whereas the food in the United States, most of the soils are depleted of selenium, so it's not found in the food. Even when they say, for example, onions and garlic are high in selenium. Well, you got to remember these measurements were done in the 1930s, and actually, if you measure them today, it's different. There's less.
Wow. So another thing, Javier, that we should probably mention too is that Synachroma paired with the diabetes solution kit. I think you're already using the diabetes solution kit, but that would be a really good option for you. And if you're looking to reverse your type 2. I'm pretty sure you're using it because I think I remember you. Okay, Paul said, how long should you wait after waking up to test blood sugar?
But fasting, you don't have to wait. Just when you wake up, test. Or like before you eat, before breakfast, test. Yeah, it would be really interesting. If you had a continuous glucose monitor, you could see how, what's happening as it's going around. Or if you test, like when you first wake up, and then like if you eat in an hour or something, then you test again, and then you can see the changes. But it should stay between 70 and 90, and that's how you know it's normal.
Okay, so Juanita said, what is a normal blood sugar an hour or so after eating?
Um, uh, See, that's where it gets sticky. If it stays under 110, that's pretty good. If it goes up to 120, that's indication of insulin resistance. If it goes up to 150, that's clearly insulin resistance. So yeah, staying around 100 after eating is normal. That's a good level.
All right. Juanita also had said my fasting sugar is all over the place. Sometimes it's in the 90s, sometimes it's 100 teens, some are in the 120s.
Okay, that is very interesting, and that's an indication of how cortisol is affecting your blood sugar, or sometimes what you're eating. Oh, yeah, this is fasting, right? She said fasting. Yeah. So there are other factors outside. So we think that blood sugar has everything to do about what we're eating or exercising, we're using sugar, right? All that. But that's not the complete picture. There are so many factors that enter into that. There's all kinds of peptide hormones that change things like glucagon, insulin, and a little more of one, little less of the other. So those changes are happening all the time. If it's going up to 120, then you probably have some insulin resistance.
All right. Diane said, Dr. Saunders, I'm in phase 1. I've lost over 15 pounds so far. My blood glucose has been in the 5 and 4 range. My doctor cut my, I think it's glipizide, but it says glycoside down to 1 a day from 2 a day, which, first of all, that's awesome. That's really exciting. And Diane is wondering, when should metformin be reduced?
Well, if you're between 4 and 5, that's pretty good. So in Canada, the 4 to 5 range is about the 65 to 110 range. It's kind of a little wider range. So I always tell, if you're in Canada between 4 and 5, that's great. That's where you want to be. So if you're in the between the 4 and 5, you probably don't need either one of them. I would suspect. I know doctors are always reticent to take people off of medications, but think about it. I don't know if you're between 4 and 5, your hemoglobin A1C is probably in the pre-diabetes range, 5.8, 5.9, or something like that. Then the then you don't need to be on those medications at all, because you're on phase 1, and that's a better thing to do than to take medications.
All right. Eugene says, what do you think about the drug Farxiga?
So Farxiga is a diuretic. What it does is it blocks your kidney from reabsorbing glucose. So the way the kidney works, you guys, this is really interesting. Kidneys are filters, and they're a lot like a coffee filter. They're really simple, and it's just like the coffee grounds stay in the little cup, and the coffee drips through. And what's dripping through? Well, everything that's water soluble, right? So the caffeine in the coffee is water soluble, so that goes right through and goes into into your cup, and some bioflavonoids, and so the flavoring things, whatever's water soluble is dripping right through the filter and going down into your cup. Well, that's what the body's doing in your kidney. All of the water soluble stuff, which is sugar, glucose is water soluble, and so that goes right through your filter and drips down in to go out in the urine. And so on its way out, though, the kidney says, oh, I need that, and pulls it back in. So oh, that's great. Yeah, so the unfiltered blood goes in, and so your kidney is pulling in what it wants and just letting everything go that it doesn't want. So what Farxiga does is it blocks that enzyme, or that mechanism that brings your glucose back into your blood. So it makes the glucose go out in the urine, and that's how it works. So that causes you to lose extra water, so it makes it kind of like a diuretic. And then it also can have effects on the urine. So for example, in the bladder, you can get more infections because there's sugar in there, and the bacteria like the sugar, so bacteria grow more easily. There's been a few cases of what's called Fournier's gangrene. They're perineal infections. They're infections that happen in the fascial layer in the perineum because of that extra sugar that's there. So there are some side effects from it, but basically it's kind of like a diuretic that just causes you to waste glucose. I don't approve of it. I don't use it because I think it's so much better to not eat the glucose in the first place. That's why.
All right. Let me see here. Susan had asked, how can I find more information about fasting?
Okay. There's a lot of good books about fasting. So Susan, I don't know how old you are, but if for like females, during times like menstruation and all that, there's certain good times to fast and bad times to fast. And so it's not, you could just fast any time, but there's ideal times. And so there's been a lot of research on this, and somebody wrote a book called Fast Like a Girl. I don't remember the author's name. I read it a long time ago. But that's actually a really good book. It explains to you what the optimum times and amounts of time to fast are during a cycle. So that's for women specifically. Otherwise, there's intermittent fasting books out. The older ones are just as good. There was one by Bragg, Fast Like a Girl. Oh, what's her name? Oh yeah, Mindy Pelz. That's who it is. Yeah, she's yeah, and it's really good. Um, so like if you've ever heard of like Bragg's vinegar or Bragg's liquid aminos or uh, that the book there was a book written a fasting book by him that I thought was really good too. Uh, let's see
Circadian Code. Are you still liking that one?
which one.
Circadian Code.
Oh, the circadian code. Yeah, they talk about fasting too. More of intermittent fasting. Yeah, that's a good one too. Oh, there's another one called Fast, Feast, Repeat. I like that one too. I don't remember the name of the author. She has a website, or she has I think it's like a community, like a webinar community, that they discuss fasting issues also.
I used to like the fasting cure also.
Yeah, Jen Stevens. Yeah. Yeah. The fasting cure. No, that's a really old one. And the thing I don't like about the fasting cure is they talk about when you end a fast, then you should end a fast with milk or meat. And I'm like, no. End a fast with a lot of fruits and vegetables. That's the best way to end a fast.
All right. You know what? We've also done many webinars on fasting that I think you'll find really informative. If you go to bartonwebinar.com, there is a link to our YouTube channel. Click that, type in fasting in our search bar, and you will find many, many of them. Okay, let's keep going. That one. Frank says, type 2 recent glucose 8.6. Hemoglobin A1C 6.7, slightly down from the last test. Taking Januvia, cannot tolerate metformin, would like to get off the Januvia. How much Synachroma daily? Is adding the fiber greens advantageous, and how do I use it? I take 1200 milligrams or 1200 berberine currently.
Okay. Perfect. So I would do berberine and Synachroma. That's a really good choice. Your blood sugar is pretty high, so what you need to do is bring the blood sugar down by doing phase 1 of the program. So start with phase 1 of the program, because that's really what's going to help you the most. And Januvia is going to increase your insulin. So that would be a good reason. If you're doing phase 1 of the program, you might be able to get off Januvia pretty quickly, because you probably won't need it anymore if you're not eating the sugar. So that's a 20-gram carbohydrate diet, 20 grams a day. I ate some bread the other day, and I looked on it. And one slice of bread was about 20 grams of carbohydrates. I'm like, wow, that's not very much carbs. So what you're allowed is you're not eating sugar so that you can't raise your blood glucose level, and you start forcing um, you're manipulating, your body to burn fat instead of sugar for energy. And that's really where the metformin or the berberine help, is to help your body switch to fat burning metabolism.
I'm going to quick show you bartonwebinar.com because I want you to know where you can get your copy of the Diabetes Solution Kit. So here we go. I'm sharing a lot of things today, but this is bartonwebinar.com. Look at that guy. And here's a couple of our latest webinars. You may not know that we actually do a Healthy Heart webinar as well. We do that on Thursdays, but these are links to our YouTube channel. So you can click those, that'll take you. Make sure you subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we upload a new webinar. Top asked questions, recommended products, And then right here's the diabetes solution kit. So you can get a printed copy or a downloadable version that you can get right away. But when we talk about phase 1, 2, 3, or we talk about doing the program, it's really a detox program. Super simple, but you got to stick to it. It's not always easy. So, but this is the diabetes solution kit. So bartonwebinar.com, use code webinar25 and you will save 25%. All right, let's go. We got 7 minutes. Anne says, I'm on Eliquis blood thinner. Can I take this supplement due to the K in it? So if I'm taking Eliquis, can I take Cinnachroma?
Yeah. So the vitamin K is only an issue if you're taking Coumadin or warfarin, because those are vitamin K analogs. They block vitamin K. But if you're on any of the other ones, Eliquis or what's the other one? Darn. Anyway, any of the other blood thinners, it's not an issue. You can take Cinnachroma.
All right. What about someone who's, Paul says, what about someone who's on dialysis, whose kidneys are not working?
Okay. That's kind of a special case. If you're on dialysis, then you have to be very careful with protein. And so there should be a nutritionist that you can work with that will help you to make sure that while you're doing trying to become insulin sensitive, that you're not overloading with protein, because that's kind of a common thing. A lot of people, when they go on our phase 1, they say, "Oh boy, I can eat all the meat and cheese and whatever, eggs and stuff with a lot of protein, and overload protein." So be careful if you're on dialysis. Make sure you work with your nutritionist, because there are certain things you have to be very careful of while you're working on the program.
All right. Emil says, what are the advantages of taking berberine for diabetics?
Yeah, Xarelto. So berberine for diabetics. The advantages of taking berberine? Well, it helps you train your body to burn fat for energy. Really, that's all it does. It doesn't lower blood sugar. It just allows you to burn fat for energy.
Nice. There's a lot of crazy things with berberine. I keep reading more and more about it, and I'm just glad we have it as a product, because it's supposed to be anti-aging benefits and just a lot of fun stuff. So I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, use code webinar25 if that's something you're something that you're interested in. Okay, Dr. Saunders, could I cut out my glipizide and metformin on my own? Again, Dr. Saunders is not your doctor, so please consult with your medical professional.
Well, see, I would have to look at your situation. So the best way to look at this is to say, you are in charge of your health, and you are responsible for whatever goes in your body. You're responsible for whatever medications you take. You're responsible for whatever food you eat. You're responsible for everything. So take responsibility and say, this is what I want to accomplish, and then find the way to accomplish that. And so one of the things that we do here is give you options of how you can accomplish that. So if I don't know if you need the medication, I don't know how much insulin resistance you have. I don't know if maybe you have zero insulin and you have to inject insulin. It's not a simple question of does everyone need the medication, or so everyone should be off of the medication. That's a very rare thing. There's osteoporosis medications that I'm like, absolutely never, nobody should ever take them. But for most diabetes medications, you know what? That might be good for you. And so sometimes you need the medication. So the best way to look at this is to take responsibility, to do the tests, to find out whether you have enough insulin, too much insulin, not enough insulin. and where your blood sugar is, and then figure out from there whether you need the medication or not.
All right. Kathy says, can you tell us how to figure out our macros for the diabetes solution kit?
Okay, macros refers to the macronutrients, and that is carbohydrates, fats, proteins. So the way to figure out the macros is clearly outlined in the book, and really we wanted to make it simple, so we're not counting fat and protein. We're really just counting carbs, and so if it doesn't have a label, then you may have to look it up. If it has a label, it's easy because it's in there, and it says total carbohydrate this, fiber this, subtract this from that, and you subtract the total fiber from your total carbohydrate, and you get the amount of sugar and starch that you have. That's the energy producing part. So that has to add up in a total day to a maximum of 20 grams. If you eat an apple, then you have to look up apple and say, oh, there's 20 grams in a medium-sized apple. Okay, that's all I can have. So something that doesn't have a label, it's easy. Just go online and look it up. And just count the carbs. So you don't have to count all your macros and figure out, oh, did I get my 40 grams of protein today or whatever. Just to make it simple, we left all that out, and just let's make it simple. Just count the carbs.
Carbs minus fiber.
Minus fiber. Correct.
Okay. Last question. Ooh, taking Synachroma while taking Plavix is okay, correct? It's from Gary.
Synachroma, Plavix. Oh yeah, Plavix is okay. Oh, and the other one was Xarelto, right? That I was trying to remember. That starts with an X. Xarelto, Plavix, and Eliquis. Yeah, they're fine because they're not vitamin K dependent. That's not what they use. So yeah, that's fine.
All right. That's it for today, Dr. Saunders. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hasta mañana.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I will see you hopefully tomorrow on the Healthy Heart webinar. If you haven't registered for that, you can do so at bartonwebinar.com. Same format as this. And I think that's it. Thanks for hanging out with us today and for your wonderful questions. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.